combination 182 cage. This is the way I make all of my liners. What I did is I went to the fabric store and I got a fleece print that I liked. I went and got it cut for the large tray on the upper level and a large tray on the bottom level. You need 90 inches. That is 45 inches for each tray. That allows for a little bit of extra fabric on the end of each tray so that you can fold it under so that your ferrets don't get underneath the fleece. I can show you later how to tuck that in, but right now we're going to cut our fabric. I want to make a note that the fold of the fabric is on this side, which is just how I do it. I am going to leave that fold there and not cut on that side. I will be able to then just sew the long side and one short side of each tray, and that way it'll give me my pillowcase style slip covers for the tray. So I'm going to start off by cutting, and then I will show you how to reverse the print. Okay, my ferrets are jumping out at me. So I'm going to show you how to reverse the print so that when you sew it, it comes out the right way. So we're going to start by cutting, and I'm going to cut this right in half, right down the middle, because this is going to be the end of this piece and the end of this piece. So I'm going to cut this down the middle. And I'm going to leave this off to the side because that's going to be my other tray that I'm going to sew. For this tray, I want to leave this large piece on this end. You'll notice that the other end is the L-shaped or the S-shaped, or however you want to say it, end of the tray. You don't want to cut a long piece on that end because you're going to need to fit it to that side of the tray. So I'm going to leave this lined up. So I'm going to cut, leaving this fold. I'm going to cut down. I'm going to leave about a ½ an inch for my seam allowance. To discard this fabric. You can use this for toys, you can tie it into knots and ropes, all kinds of things for the ferrets. So you don't want to do that, and then of course it'll match your liners. Okay, at this time I'm going to take this off, take this tray off, and right now my fabric is right side up. This is the fabric side that I want to see on the tray. So I don't want to sew this side or else you'll see rough edges along the sides if you sew it this way. So what I need to do is take it and turn it inside out. So I'm going to take the whole thing. And you can do this before you cut as well. It becomes a little bit more complicated because you want to make sure that you have the right edges on the right side, but you just line up your sides. Line up your L shape. Make sure everything is smooth and lined up. And now you're on the wrong side of the fabric. So when you sew this, let's get some pins out. You're going to want to make sure we keep these corners straight. So we're going to pin along the side of the open edges. You don't need to pin the side of the folded edge because you're not going to sew that edge. And that's how you get your stuff sewn, and then you go ahead and sew around all of the edges that are marked with a needle. You do not sew the folded edge, and you do not sew the end because you'll slip that onto the tray like a pillowcase. You do the same thing for the other tray, except you don't cut the L shape. You just cut square along the end, square along the side, pin it after you reverse the color, of course. Pin it and then sew those two sides as well, and you'll have the slip cover for that tray. Next, we'll go over how to do it for the little trays. Okay. Next, we're going to be doing the covers for the two small trays that are in the Ferret Nation 182 cage. I got a couple tips for you with this. I have my fabric already reversed on this one. This is the fabric side that I want to show up, the fuzzy side. So I've put that on the inside of my folds. The raw edge is over here, the folded edge is over here. And when I line my tray up, this is what I want to do. I want you to look at your trays. On two of the corners, you have these rounded edges. These are the outside parts of the tray. On the inside corners, you have these grooves. That's where they fit over the wires of the tray when you set it inside. So when you're doing your covers for these, you're going to want your extra fabric to be on the side with the grooves in it. You don't want extra fabric hanging off the end of your tray. You want it to be tucked on the inside of when you set it up on the shelf. So I'm going to line up my rounded edges with my folded edge. I'm going to take it right to the end, so I only have to cut once. I'm going to allow about a 1/2 inch seam allowance on this side and about a 1/2 inch seam allowance on this side. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut all the way down. Like that. Now this might seem like a lot of extra fabric, and it might be. I like to tuck in quite a bit of fabric into mine so that they don't get underneath it. You can always cut more off after you've already sewn it, but I like to keep mine just like this so I can tuck all my fabric down on the inside, and I'll show you in the video how to do that. So I'm going to take this tray off and set it over here because I am making two of these, but when I pin it, I'm going to pin only down these two sides. You don't want to sew the end shut. This is going to be like a pillowcase. So you're going to only want to pin down the two sides, the end and the side that you cut. That way when we reverse it, it's just like putting on a pillowcase onto the tray, but you're going to have some extra fabric on the end. So that's just to kind of hold it in place. So I'm going to fold that up a little bit to the side, and I'm going to cut my next one. I am making two. So I'm going to leave a 1/2 inch seam allowance. The rounded edges are of course against the fold. And I'm going to allow a 1/2 inch seam allowance on this side, and I'm going to cut all the way down. And you'll notice I have quite a bit of fabric left. These only require, I believe, 25 inches. I'll have to check. Anyway, it's the width of the cage, or the depth of the cage is how long that is, plus a 1/2 inch seam allowance on each side. I am going to try something with my hammocks though this time. I'm going to do gray hammocks. This is the print that I chose for my large trays. These are going to be my small trays, and then I have a gray that I'm going to cut for my hammocks, but I'm going to try to do some fringe on it. So I got some extra fabric, and I'm going to try something new with you on video for that. I've never done it before, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to sew these, and we'll get back to the hammocks. So now we're going to make the hammocks. This is the hammock that I had already made from my last batch of covers for the cage. But I will need to explain this a little bit. This hammock measures square at 18 inches finished. So I want to cut about a 20-inch square hammock, but I don't want to use the folded side, and I'll explain why. You want 4 rough edges for you to sew. And here's why. You need to be able to add these ribbons on the ends, and you don't want any raw edges showing. You see how it not showing any rough edge right there. And I'm going to show you how to do that. But first we're going to cut our hammock. I am going to cut it already with the seam allowance on this side. I'm just going to use my hammock instead of measuring. And I'm going to cut, not through my own ribbon. And it doesn't have to be exact. Hammocks can be all different sizes. But I'm going to cut down this side. I'm going to cut down this side. And I've got my hammock cut. Now, I'm going to take this other side. Now, this is the side of the fabric that's got the little holes in it, and it's the real rough edge of that. You're not going to see that necessarily, but I don't want that to show on the edge of my hammock. So I'm going to cut that off. I did allow for the seam allowance on that, so I'm going to cut that off. Like I said, hammocks can be any size, so it doesn't have to be exact science as to how you do your hammock. Now, when you have your square cut, where did my ribbon go? You're going to have your 4 ribbons. And each ribbon is going to go on each corner. They're about 8 inches long, so that when you sew them and fold them, they're about 3.5 to 4 inches. So when you take your hammock, now I've already flipped my fabric inside out. So this is the back side of my hammock, or what's going to be on the inside of my hammock. What's going to be on the outside of my hammock is this on the inside, this gray sweatpant looking material. So that's what I want on the outside of my hammock. But I also want these on the outside of my hammock. So I'm going to fold them in half. I'm going to pull up one corner, and I'm going to pin, or I'm going to set it in half, fold them in half, and have that loop be on the inside. And then fold that back down, leaving just the little tail end of the ribbon out, just like that. And I'm going to pin that ribbon into place. Now, when I switch it inside out, when I flip the hammock inside out, those ribbons will be on the outside. So I'm going to do that for all 4 corners. Fold it in half, peel open your little sandwich, set it in there, leave some hanging out so you can see it, fold it down, and pin it. Fold it in half, open up your sandwich, leave a little bit hanging out, like the loop on the inside, put your sandwich back together, and pin it. Then, when you sew, you're going to sew. Now, this might sound a little bizarre. You're only going to sew 3 sides. So mark the 3 sides of the pin that you're going to sew. You're going to sew all the way in. Now, when you get to these this open edge right here, say if these 3 sides are sewn, and you get to this open edge right here, you're going to want to sew down about 4 inches, sew down this side about 4 inches, and leave about a 5 to 6 inch gap of not being sewn. That way, when you're done, you can flip it inside out. You need to be able to have an opening to flip it inside out. Once you do flip it inside out, you just take your edges, fold them under, and do a quick stitch on that one side. You won't be able to see it. And that's how you make a hammock. Okay, so I'm going to try something new with my hammock. I've never done this before, so we'll see how it turns out. Instead of just putting the ribbons on the inside of my hammock, I'm going to go ahead and take strips of another color, and I'm going to try this. Putting them just on the inside, like so, of my sandwich. And I'm going to cut a little end off here so that it leaves some room. I'm going to do that for all 4 sides. So I'm going to take the whole top off. I'm going to line this up. I don't want to accidentally sew over that. So make another strip. And I'm just winging it here, guys. Anything that you want to do with your hammocks, with your covers, anything you want to try. I'm just trying this. Putting this right on the edge. Putting this right on the edge. And now I'm going to take my ribbons, fold them in half, and leave the little edges hanging out. Just going to pin this before putting the top on just to hold everything in place. Pins will stick out. We'll be able to adjust them. Okay, now that I have my ribbons tied on, I'm going to put my top back on, hide all this stuff. I'm going to line up my corners. I want to make sure I'm getting that fabric, so I want to be very careful how I line this up. Now I'm going to take these pins out and pin the whole thing together. Again, you're going to want to only sew around 3 sides, about 4 inches in on either side of the 4th side, and leave a big gap in the middle for you to turn it inside out, okay? So try that. We'll see how this turns out. Okay, we're all done sewing. These turned out great. These are the hammocks that I sewed. Because I put the fabric on the inside, and then when I folded it back out, the fabric is on the outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut little frills in it, like so. Be very careful not to cut the fabric. You're going to want to do this after you put your fabric on your hammock. You don't want to have to try to mess around with a lot of frills while you're sewing. So that's going to be the end result, like that. And these are all sewed, so what you're going to do is take them and flip them right side out. And there's your cover for your tray. These are your small trays. You're going to flip these right side out. And there's your cover for your small trays. We're going to do that with all of these. Flip them out. Now you'll notice that this is the side that I wanted, so you want to sew it with this, the side that you want on the inside. And last but not least, this is going to be our L-shaped or S-shaped, or however you want to say it, tray, which when you sew it, turns out to look like so. So that is for that tray. So let's go ahead and get the cage put together, and we will show you the finished product of what the cage looks like.